Well. Let's try this one more time. Welcome back, my gaming duderinos. And I hope you're having a fantastic Tuesday evening. We are doing something a little bit different tonight. We've done some spin-offs, if you will. We've done some things that were a little bit different than what we've done previously. And tonight is going to be just like that. What's up, Factor? Happy Tuesday, brother. Man, really enjoyed the live stream this afternoon. Just had it like pulled up while I was working. It was awesome. I don't know anything about that game. I was like, I can't help y'all at all because I don't know this game, but great job this morning. It was really cool to see y'all streaming live. But we're gonna do something a little bit different tonight. We are going to watch a little Resident Evil recap video. This probably won't be our normal 2 to 3 hour stream. I want to just kind of talk through because we are basically 16 days away from Resident Evil Requiem coming out. Be prepared for that. I will be taking off work so that we can just do a marathon stream. Last time I did that for a release was Silent Hill F, and we streamed for, I think that first day we streamed for like something like 10 hours, and it was awesome. I was exhausted, but it was so much fun. So we're gonna prepare for another marathon stream. I just had a bad game day. Dude, my everyday game is a bad day gaming. So I feel you there. No, I thought y'all did great. The game just looked hard. Like the whole, you know, how the process, like it was like you get knocked and then it's hard to get back up and get going and running out of ammo. Like that just makes it challenging. So, yeah, so we're gonna do a little Resident Evil recap. We're gonna pray to the heavens that this does not get a copyright strike, because I'm not gonna be watching anything I've created. We're gonna try and watch some videos that other people put together, and then we're gonna go from there. So we are live officially on YouTube, Twitch, and TikTok tonight. So if you are joining us on one of those platforms, feel free to say hi, drop a chat. Love to chat with y'all. Obviously, my main OGs are in the YouTube. But let's see if we can make this work. I want something that goes like into more. This video is 2 hours and 50 minutes. That's probably what it honestly would take, is like 2 hours and 50 minutes. Let's try this one.
In the early 20th century, the main villain of Resi Village, Mother Miranda, is living out her life peacefully in Eastern Europe with her daughter Eva until the Spanish flu pandemic whips through her community in 1919, killing
Spanish
all
flu.
and sundry.
Yes.
Eva's death sends Miranda into a downward spiral, and she ventures off into a cave network beneath the village to seek out death. Ironically, instead of finding a quick death, she discovers a form of mold known as the Megamycete, a genome which gifts her with regenerative abilities. Armed with this newfound power and knowledge, Miranda seeks to use it to bring her daughter back to life. Miranda continues to experiment with the Megamycete genome over the next couple of decades, and she eventually creates the Cadu parasite, which will crop up again when we come back round to Resident Evil Village. Anyway, the year is now 1951, and a young British medical student has stumbled onto Miranda's research after getting lost on a hiking expedition. This young whippersnapper turns out to be one Oswald E. Spencer, who will prove to be very important on this timeline.
but
I
I'm
played it
getting
when
ahead
it
of
first
myself.
came out, but I
Spencer
haven't
is
played Village
impressed
in a
with
long
Miranda's
time.
work, and it inspires him to undertake his own devious
It's really
research into
good.
instigating the next level of human
It
evolution.
doesn't necessarily
More on
feel
that
like Resident
very
Evil in the
shortly.
beginning, but
He
it
even
definitely
nabs a
is.
local symbol representing the sigil of the 4 houses of the area as inspiration for his iconic logo, a logo that also looks a lot like an umbrella. Speaking of umbrella, let's chart the origins of that despicable company.
Ella,
Awaken to a world of wonder in Final Fantasy XIV
We will
Online.
be skipping ads. That is 100% for sure.
In 1962, Spencer commissioned architect George Trevor to design and build a certain mansion and research laboratory in the Arklay Mountains.
So this
Trevor
is where they
finally
built
finishes his
the
mad
original
masterpiece
mansion,
in
right?
1967, and it's a labyrinthine structure full of locked doors that make no logical sense. And in order to hide the mansion's terrible secrets forever, Spencer, being the awful bastard that he is, invites the Trevor
But he's
family
gonna play
to
Village
stay.
on the channel. Dude,
And,
that's
well,
awesome.
they never leave. Across the swinging 60s, he
It's
joined
such a great
forces with
game.
university pal James Marcus and eccentric millionaire Edward Ashford on an expedition to locate a legendary African flower known as the Stairway to the Sun.
Like, I know there was some Resident Evil. I think in total, I read somewhere that there are 29 Resident Evil games, and that includes games that are like were on like Game Boy. I mean, I don't know if there's one actually on Game Boy, but just like all the different versions of Resident Evil games, not even including, well, I guess it includes remakes too, but just thinking about how many Resident Evil games are out there, it would be rather difficult to play them all. I follow Moist Critical on YouTube, and he has played them all, which is pretty impressive, but you know, he gets paid to do it for a living too.
This flower is said to contain powerful properties, and this is confirmed when the trio extract the progenitor virus from it. This virus has the ability to genetically alter organisms, and they immediately transport it back to the USA. Our evil trio then established the Umbrella Corporation as a legitimate pharmaceuticals company, as a cover for their totally illegitimate viral research,
They were
and
out
their
to
ultimate
make
goal of creating a race of superhumans.
Yeah,
Or at
they were
least
trying to
that's
make
Spencer's
superhumans,
ultimate goal.
like weapons for the
Ashford becomes
military.
increasingly frustrated with the
right?
other two, and he makes for Antarctica to set up his own research labs, which would later hold the Code Veronica project. Ashford never sees the Code Veronica project come to fruition though, as in July 1968, he's injected with the progenitor virus himself on the orders of all-round bad egg Spencer, and he swiftly dies.
He was succeeded by his son Alexander, who takes
like
control
Obi-Wan
of the
Kenobi.
Antarctica Umbrella Lab in an effort to keep his father's work going, albeit with more of a focus on
From the
cloning.
Clone
Back in
Wars
the
cartoon.
USA, Spencer and Marcus take control of Umbrella facilities in the Arklay Mountains, just outside of Raccoon City. Spencer continues his research
City?
into the progenitor virus in the lab under the newly constructed mansion, while Marcus is appointed as director of the newly founded Umbrella
Oh yeah, I
training
forgot the
facility.
lab is like
Spencer's
underneath
plan is to create
the.
a race of superhumans dubbed
the,
Project
mansion.
Wesker. And this nefarious plan sees Umbrella kidnap a whole load of children to be loyal foot soldiers to Spencer's cause. And they are all brainwashed and injected with the progenitor virus. Sadly, most of them die, except for a certain Albert Wesker, who we'll come to be quite familiar with across this timeline.
Meanwhile, in Antarctica,
I'm curious.
Alexander
I know that,
Ashford's
like-
Code Veronica project is finally complete. In 1971,
I know that Albert Wesker is technically dead, but I'm very curious if he will make a resurgence in Requiem. I think that would be cool. There's also a lot of people that think Leon Kennedy is going to die in Resident Evil Requiem, and they better not. They better not touch my boy Leon. I don't think they'll kill off Leon, but whew, it would be sad if they did, honestly. I would be very upset if they kill off Leon.
Ashford creates 2 clones from his family DNA, Alfred and Alexia. Fast forward to January 1978, yep, the 70s were seemingly
they made
sparse for the
multiple
Resi
clones of
franchise,
Wesker, yeah,
and Marcus
correct.
is making a breakthrough with his research at the Umbrella training facility. By splicing the progenitor with leech DNA, he creates the T virus, or at least a strain that doesn't immediately kill those exposed to it. It just turns them into hideously mutated creatures. Not sure which one of those is the better option, if I'm honest.
His research
Zombies.
is assisted by 2 students from the Umbrella training facility, Doctors William
I
Birkin
want
and Albert
that
Wesker.
art book
But
he's
their work
got
together does not
on his
last
shelf
long,
back
as at the
there.
end of the school year, the Umbrella training facility is closed down, and Birkin, Wesker, and the T-Virus are all moved to Spencer's Arclay research labs. Suspicious of Spencer's motives, Marcus continues to stay behind with his work and experiments on anything and everything from mammals to reptiles.
All of which will pop up as end-of-level bosses in Resident Evil 0.
Yeah, because that's coming up in my Resident Evil 2 playthrough, but I forgot the dogs you fight. I forgot about the
early 1980s
plants
are
you have
not
to
a
deal
good time
with.
for the Ashford family. Remember Alexia? Well, she's grown up to become a 10-year-old child mastermind and is promptly appointed the senior researcher at Umbrella's Antarctica lab, much to the annoyance of 21-year-old Wesker. Keep up, Albert.
After learning about their origin as clones, Alexia and her brother Alfred vow to hunt down and capture their father, which they succeed in doing in 1983. With Alexander in custody, Alexia uses him as a test subject for research into her new version of the T-virus.
The first Wesker was actually a clone too. I don't think
Surprise, the experiment
that.
turns him into a psychotic monster, later known as Nosferatu. No, not that one.
Nosferatu.
Taking the failed experiment on the chin, Alexia uses the data she obtained on her father to inject herself with the T Veronica virus, while she peacefully sleeps the effects off in a cryogenic chamber for 15 years. Don't worry, we'll come back to this mad child prodigy later on.
Back in the Arclay labs, research on the virus, now headed up by William Birkin, has stalled. Umbrella have discovered that 10% of the population are naturally immune to the virus, and Birkin sets himself the morbid task of solving this unique
10% immune. I don't
His
remember
answer
that.
comes in the form of a bioorganic weapon, or BOW for short, known as the Hunter, which is born through splicing reptilian and human DNA with the T-virus. Birkin's research and development continues across the 80s and culminates with the start of a little project known as the Tyrant.
Tyrant.
Okay, it's late 1988, and I think it's about time we catch up with our good pal James Marcus.
Also,
who's
that
slowly
Zelda
been going off
poster in the
rails with
background.
his
Holy
own
cow.
brand of the T-virus research.
As an independent
That guy's an
researcher,
awesome,
Marcus
like,
makes headway by
background.
continuing to experiment with leeches, and in some extreme cases, his own staff. And he eventually creates his magnum opus, the Queen Leech. His old mate Oswell Spencer is having none of this though, and seeks to regain control of the T-virus research by assassinating Marcus and stealing his work. He sends in a team of Umbrella soldiers alongside Wesker and Birkin, and they shoot and kill Marcus before dumping his body and his precious Queen Leech at a nearby sewerage treatment.
I wonder if they'll crop back up in this story. Spoilers, they do.
Everything comes back in Resident Evil. Like, nothing dies. I think that's like the whole
The 90s sees Umbrella
shtick of
expand
Resident
their
Evil. Nothing
operations
ever
across
really
the
dies.
Arclay Mountains and into neighbouring Raccoon City, with Birkin making significant progress with his research creating the superior G-virus in the process. Spencer
Birkin,
commissions a
yeah.
gigantic
That's who
underground
we're
lab to
fighting
be
right now
built
in Resident
underneath
Evil
the
2.
city, a job that he covers up by bribing Raccoon City Police Chief Brian Irons. Brian's.
Fast forward to 1996, and the Raccoon...
That's not a raccoon.
1996, and the Raccoon City Police Department instigate the inaugural special... Fast forward to 1996, and the Raccoon City
Just
Police
let the cat
Department
be in the
instigate
shop, my
inaugural
guy.
Special Tactics and Rescue Services Unit, or STARS for short.
Yeah.
You are a pesky animal.
Although it's under the jurisdiction of the RPD, it remains a privately funded independent venture, namely so Umbrella can keep their fingers in the pie. Disgusting. During this time, Albert Wesker is assigned to STARS by Umbrella, and he quickly becomes the captain of the squad's Alpha team.
Right, we have finally reached the most pivotal year in the entire Resident Evil timeline, 1998. A year in which a whopping 5 games in the franchise take place.
In May 1998, there is a catastrophic outbreak of the T-virus at the Spencer Mansion Labs.
Wow, 5
and a handful
games
of
take place in
Cerberus, zombie
1998.
dogs
That's
to
wild.
you and me, escape
I don't
into
think
the
I
Arclay
realized that.
Mountains and start killing unfortunate hikers. In an attempt to contain the outbreak, Umbrella locks down the mansion lab and the T-virus begins to spread among the poor staff still there. Naturally, with the horrific nature of the Arclay killings, the stories emerging inspire a media firestorm, and the press start putting pressure on the RPD to get the situation under control. Chief Irons dispatches the STARS, Alpha and Bravo teams to investigate the surrounding mountains, with Wesker overseeing the missions. Unbeknownst to the rest of his teams though, Wesker's directive from Umbrella HQ is instead to gain critical information about the site's BOWs and destroy the mansion before it is discovered. Alongside that, he is ordered to gather information about the BOW's combat ability, specifically in their interactions with the incoming STARS teams.
Boo ads.
And so we finally reach the very first game in the Resident Evil timeline, which details the STARS Bravo team's failed mission. The Bravo team make their way out to the Arclay Mountains, only for their helicopter to crash en route, courtesy of a little bit of sabotage from our good mate Wesker. Instead of making for the Spencer Mansion, as per their original plan, the team stumble onto the wreck of a military convoy with all the soldiers very much dead. They discovered that the troop had been escorting accused murderer Billy Cohen, and putting 2 and 2 together and making 5, assume Billy is the lad responsible for all the brutal killings. They split up, and rookie STARS member Rebecca Chambers quickly discovers an abandoned train, the Ecliptic
interesting.
Express.
I did not know that.
Now remember that I said that James Marcus and his Queen Leech would make a comeback into this story? Well, boy, what a comeback it is.
It turns out that when Umbrella dumped Marcus and his leech in that sewerage facility, the leech slowly ate away at Marcus's body and mind, effectively absorbing his personality. The end result was a reincarnated Marcus-Leech hybrid thing, hell-bent on revenge with Umbrella.
This franchise is totally bonkers, but I absolutely love it.
With Marcus back from the dead, he goes to town on the poor inhabitants of the train, and by the time Rebecca Chambers stumbles onto the train, they are all dead. Or undead, I guess. Having been consumed by Marcus's army of leeches, Rebecca boards the train, encounters death row inmate Billy Cohen, and they start to investigate the express. Keen to get the train back on its journey,
4 and 5,
Wesker and Birkin send in a team of Umbrella soldiers who succeed in getting the train underway, but promptly get chomped by the leeches. Rebecca and Billy manage to bring the train to a stop, albeit a messy one, and emerge from the wreckage at the Umbrella training facility. Marcus, or the hybrid leech thing, reveals himself to Wesker and Birkin, and this leads the duo to activate the facility's self-destruct function. Caught in the middle of all of this are poor Rebecca and Billy, who navigate their way out of the facility, kill the Queen Leech, and get to safety before the place blows sky high. As they overlook the destruction, Rebecca allows the actually innocent Billy to go free, and she leaves him to go and help Alpha Team at a familiar-looking mansion. The game then ends with Billy giving the cheesiest thumbs up I've ever seen.
An emulator and go back and play those, some of those older ones. All right, now we're to the original OG game.
Okay, we are now with the OG Resident Evil.
That's what I just said.
Which details the exploits of Alpha Team in their mission to investigate the Arclay killings. Headed up by Wesker, the STARS squad includes expert marksman Chris Redfield, Jill Valentine, the master of unlocking, top explosives lad Barry Burton, and helicopter pilot Brad Vickers. The team successfully land near the mansion, but are quickly caught off guard by a pack of zombie dogs, which forces them into the Spencer Mansion. Separated, they each make their way through the illogical maze of corridors, encountering and surviving the zombified Umbrella staff, BOWs, and various other mutations.
So I guess they did do a level of remake of the original, but not like what we've seen. He strong-arms
Barry into helping him set traps for the rest of the STARS team by threatening to kill his family. Chris and Jill survive everything and anything that's thrown at them: sharks, snakes, spiders, bad dialogue. And they meet up with Rebecca Chambers on their way to getting out of the mansion. Wesker is finally revealed to be a traitor to Alpha Team, and as a result he releases Umbrella's Tyrant project, a huge mutated man-mountain, in a bid to kill the remaining STARS members. Chris, Jill and Rebecca fight off the Tyrant, and thanks to the impeccable timing of Vickers' return with the helicopter, they all escape
the only
as
way
the
you can
Spencer
blow
Mansion
up
self-destructs. There's
the big baddies like that is with like a rocket launcher. It was harder going back into the mansion if you didn't burn the zombies. They come back as crimson zombies and run after you. Gosh, it's been so long since I've played some of those older games. That's something else I need to go back and do at some point. PlayStation 2 is a great system, yeah.
Definitely a pattern emerging here, right? Amidst the chaos, Wesker
Definitely
manages
a
to survive
pattern
as well,
emerging.
albeit without the critical BOW samples he intended to gather, and he leaves Umbrella for good.
Under my umbrella, Ella.
Okay, a couple of months have passed and we catch up with Jill Valentine during the events of Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. Under pressure from Umbrella, STARS has been disbanded and nobody believes the team about what they saw in the Arclay Mountains.
The T-Virus has very much arrived in downtown Raccoon City, having spread from that gigantic
Except for the original, we
underground
don't see
lab
Chris
that
Redfield
somehow
for a
remains
while,
secret.
right?
With the zombie population on the rise, there is chaos in the streets and the RPD is quickly overwhelmed. Umbrella, in a series of questionable decisions, starts deploying BOWs all across Raccoon City. Chief among them is the dapper Mr. X and the titular foe of Resi 3, Nemesis. Nemesis is given the mission of hunting down former STARS members, and keeping this momentum going, he begins his unrelenting chase of Jill Valentine. Across town, the Umbrella Biohazard Countermeasure Service,
The unrelenting chasing of like Mr. X and the Tyrant in these games is one of the most, it's like such a simplistic like game mechanic, I guess, but it is literally one of the most like terrifying things, I feel like, because of just like, I get more scared running through and trying to escape Mr. X than I do like literally anything else in the game. Okay, that was hard for me to say for whatever reason.
that's a mouthful, arrive and start evacuating anyone who's not a zombie. In her attempts to escape, Jill runs into UBCS team member Carlos Oliveira, and the pair take the fight to Nemesis
That's
while
another
trying
person
to
I don't
escape
feel like
the
we've
ruins
seen
of
a
the
whole
city.
lot of.
During their fight, Jill
I'm
becomes
not
infected
mistaken.
with the T-Virus, leaving poor Carlos to fend for himself and find a cure for Jill.
Will she survive? We'll have to wait until later because we've got a date with a blonde hunk.
Leon,
This game.
blonde hunk.
You're not ready for it.
Resident Evil 2.
Taking place concurrently with Resident Evil 3 is the campaign to Resident Evil 2, which sees new cop on the block Leon Kennedy and Chris Redfield's sister Claire appear for the first time in the franchise.
Leon arrives in Raccoon City for his first day on the job in the middle of the zombie apocalypse.
I've finished playing
After
through
encountering
Leon's
Claire
story
Redfield,
in
who's
Resident
searching
Evil
for
2
her
and
brother Chris
started
at an
recording
out-of-town
Claire's.
gas station,
I just,
the pair make their way into the heart of the city before
the
getting
way they
separated
overlap was so
during a car
genius
accident.
back in the day.
Leon eventually makes his way to the RPD, which is completely overrun with zombies. After navigating the station's bizarre lock and key setup, it is an old museum after all, Leon finds himself down in the cells where he runs into the mysterious Ada Wong. Ada's mission is to swipe a vial of the G-Virus,
in her little red
and
dress.
Leon agrees to go along with it, the naive heartthrob. As they're investigating, the pair are attacked by Mr. X, and they escape into the sewers where they encounter Annette Birkin, wife of Umbrella scientist William. Annette injures Ada and informs Leon that he's working with a mercenary who wants to sell the virus on the black market. Leon, the fool that he is, descends into Birkin's lab anyway, swipes the G-Virus and returns to Ada, who immediately holds him up at gunpoint for it. Annette pops up one last time,
That's why
shoots
Ada's
Ada,
a goat.
and in the ensuing chaos, the G-Virus and Ada fall into the abyss. As Leon tries to escape the lab, Mr. X makes one last encore before being dispatched by a handy rocket launcher that is thrown to him by Ada, who has miraculously survived her fall. Meanwhile, Claire encounters a young girl, Sherry, daughter of William Birkin, and they manage to escape a giant creature by taking refuge in the RPD car park, where they meet morally bankrupt police chief Brian Irons.
Yep.
Brian kidnaps Sherry and locks her in a neighbouring abandoned orphanage. As Claire mounts a rescue mission, a tyrant drops in on Irons, infecting him with a parasite. Irons dies and Sherry flees, while Claire manages to escape into the sewers, only to bump into Sherry's mum, Annette, who reveals that the creature chasing
Isn't
her
Sherry
daughter
really
is
a
in
clone
fact
of
her
Annette?
mutated
Am I
father.
misremembering
Turns
that
out
too?
our Will had plans to sell his G-Virus creation to the US military, a plan that didn't go down too well with Umbrella, who promptly sent in a team to kill him. To save himself, Birkin injected himself
Technically,
with the
they weren't
G-Virus,
supposed to
turning the
kill
good
him.
doctor into a
Killing him was
repulsive
an
monster.
accident.
In the ensuing carnage, he destroyed a bunch of T-Virus stores, which led to the Raccoon City outbreak. When Claire and Annette find Sherry, they discover that she's already been infected by her father,
Word from
and the
Mr.
pair
X.
hatch a plan to find a cure from within Birkin's labs.
Have a good night, brother.
Claire
Hey,
succeeds
stop
in
for
finding an
thanks for
antidote,
stopping in.
and in the chaos of
Factor.
getting back to cure
Get some good
Sherry,
sleep, my
Annette
guy.
is killed
We'll
by
see you
her
again soon.
husband.
Hopefully
Naturally,
tomorrow
the whole
night.
facility enacts the now contractually
Appreciate your support,
obliged
brother, as
self-destruct
always.
function,
Have a great
and
night.
Claire
Sleep well.
and Sherry escape to an evacuation train, where they meet back up with Leon. Birkin has one more crack at killing them, fails, and is then caught in the fires of the exploding labs.
Yeah, we haven't played that part yet. Not in our playthrough, though, at least I should say.
Okay, let's wrap up that cliffhanger from earlier. Carlos, being the absolute lad that he is, scavenges a cure for
Absolute
Jill
lad.
because by this stage they're just lying around the wastes of Raccoon City, and she recovers from her infection. The pair make their way through a series of underground Umbrella labs in an attempt to escape the city before it's nuked from the air. It's the only way to be sure. En route, they're ambushed by good old Nemesis one last time, and Jill fires the killing blow with the biggest of big f***ing guns. After defeating Nemesis and overpowering
I
one of
forgot she
Carlos's
did that.
corrupt squad mates, the pair ride off into the sunset and Raccoon City is reduced to ashes behind them.
I had totally forgotten they like nuke Raccoon City.
Alright, 3 months have passed since the devastation in Raccoon City, and Claire Redfield is still searching for her brother Chris. Her search takes her to an Umbrella facility in Paris, where she is eventually caught in a sequence.
Every time I hear about Chris Redfield, I think of Queso in his like absolute obsession with Chris Redfield and how like hilarious it is. I'm just making sure all my streams are looking good. I think everything's good. Good.
Heavily riffing on John Woo. Umbrella locks her up in an isolated prison in the Southern Ocean known as
John Woo.
Rockfort Island. And lo and behold, there is an outbreak of the T-Virus on the island, and Claire soon gets set free. Soon after, she encounters the world's most irritating Canadian, a floppy-haired lad called Steve Burnside, and the pair team up to escape the island. In their way stands
never played this
Alfred
game.
Ashford, one of the clones created by Umbrella co-founder Alexander Ashford, and, well, he's gone a bit insane. His time alone and apart from his twin sister Alexia has led him to cultivate a split personality, and he switches frequently between the identities of himself and Alexia. Claire and Steve soon break free from Rockfort Island, only for Alfred to divert their plane to the nearby Umbrella facility in Antarctica, using the system's autopilot override. Crash landing in Antarctica, the pair finally defeat Alfred, who uses his final spark of life to awaken his sister Alexia from her cryosleep. She's not the only Ashford in Antarctica, though. Turns out Papa Alexander Ashford, the other Nosferatu, is still around and he's hungry for revenge. As Claire squares off against the hideous remains of Alexander, Alexia takes control
He's
of
the
the
one that
situation
wanted
and
to
captures our
destroy
heroic duo as they attempt to escape.
everybody
Meanwhile,
involved
back
with the
on
T-Virus,
Rockfort
right?
Island, Chris has turned up searching for his sister. In his search of the island, he bumps into none other than Dr. Albert Wesker, who has gone rogue from Umbrella since the Spencer Mansion incident, and is there to retrieve a sample of the T. Veronica virus. With their goals both
Albert
in
Wesker
Antarctica,
always
the
reminds
pair
me
separately
of the
make haste
Terminator
the
for some
Umbrella
reason, the
base.
T-1000
Once there, Chris saves Claire,
from
poor
Terminator
Steve
2.
becomes infected and dies, Alexia is finally defeated, and that sneaky bastard Wesker makes off with Steve's T. Veronica virus-riddled body, all while Umbrella's Antarctica base, yep, you guessed it, self-destructs.
There's one
You know what I
thing.
miss most about playing?
If there's
Yelling.
one thing
So I got this job.
that Resident Evil does well, it's explosions. Some of the explosions in Resident Evil games are the most awesome and like perfectly timed things ever, in my opinion. The Dark Side Chronicles never.
Next up on our
even
timeline is the
knew
We
these were
Like
a
Guns
thing.
spin-off Resident Evil Dark Side Chronicles, which largely regales the events of Resident Evil 2 and Code Veronica. But it does have one story mission that is unique and takes our timeline a little bit further, and that's Operation Javier.
4 years after the disastrous events in Raccoon City, Leon Kennedy and Special Ops member Jack Krauser are dispatched to South America to apprehend cartel leader Javier Hidalgo, who has apparently infected his daughter Manuela with the Veronica virus. Leon and Krauser encounter and secure Manuela before proceeding to
So
Hidalgo's
how many different
complex.
versions of the virus
There-
are there? There's the T virus, there's the G virus, there's the Veronica virus. Is there only 3 versions right now? And how many versions do there end up being? I don't remember.
They defeat Javier, who has fused himself with the Veronica virus to become some kind of giant killer plant, and they escape with Manuela via helicopter. During the fight, Krauser's arm is wounded and becomes infected, and as a result, he's discharged from the US Army. This leads him down a darker path, as he contacts Resi Big Bad Albert Wesker to join his team.
Yeah, he becomes a bad guy. I do know that. I remember him from later on.
Umbrella Chronicles is next on our timeline, and it largely retreads grounds from Resident Evil 0, 1, and 3. But it does have a unique story mission called Umbrella's End, and I'm guessing you can figure out what that entails.
The year is 2003. Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine are investigating Umbrella's last known stronghold, a facility in Russia which is developing a new bioweapon known as the Talos Project. Chris and Jill, being the experts that they are, infiltrate the facility and destroy the Talos. But wait, who's that on the horizon? It's only bloody Wesker again, here to take his final revenge on Umbrella. Wesker flings his coat into the camera like an absolute nutter. It must be freezing out there, and he tears his way into the compound. He encounters Sergei Vladimir, a high-ranking Umbrella leader who has been working closely with Lord Spencer to keep Umbrella going in the wake of the Raccoon City outbreaks. Sergei is no match for Wesker though, who quickly dispatches him and steals Umbrella's deepest, darkest secrets, which he then makes public. As a result, Umbrella loses its long-standing legal battle with the US government, a dispute that's been going on since 1998, and Umbrella declares bankruptcy as a result. Nothing more exciting than court proceedings to bring an evil, monster-creating corporation to its knees, eh lads?
Resident Evil 4, one of my favorites. One I'm playing through right now on Scary Game
With
Sunday.
Umbrella a thing of the past, Resident Evil 4 kicks off a new era for the franchise.
Resi 4 is a largely self-contained chapter in the franchise, taking the series away from its zombified roots. The year is 2004 and Leon Kennedy is dispatched to rescue the American president's daughter Ashley from a mysterious cult in deepest, darkest Spain. He arrives at a creepy rural farmstead populated by a group of hostile villagers who have pledged their allegiance to the cult of Los Iluminados. The villagers are effectively being controlled by a
the
parasite
Spanish
known as
version
Las
of the
Plagas,
Illuminati?
with the cult leader Osmond Sadler calling the shots. Leon, after surviving chainsaws, giants and a mutated salamander, finally tracks down Ashley to a nearby church, and the pair later escape to a castle which doesn't look menacing in the slightest. Jokes, it's under the control of creepy man-child Ramon Salazar, another of Sadler's henchmen. When Leon and Ashley get separated amidst the castle's deadly traps, Leon encounters an old acquaintance, the lady in the red dress, Ada Wong.
Long time no see.
Leon battles his way out of the castle, killing a mutated Salazar, and makes his way
Okay, so
to
here's the
find
question.
Ashley.
If Leon is going to be in Requiem, does Ada Wong make an appearance in Requiem too? I can't wait to play Requiem. So I am so hyped for Requiem.
At an offshore island facility. Old acquaintances are like London buses, it seems, as Leon then bumps into his former Special Ops buddy, Jack Krauser. Krauser then reveals that he and Ada are both working for Wesker to secure the Las Plagas parasite, and Leon, being the good egg boy that he is, defeats him. Leon then confronts Sadler himself, killing him atop the island's research facility with a good old-fashioned rocket launcher to the face, courtesy again of Ada. Ada then holds Leon up at gunpoint again, and she makes off with a sample of the Las Plagas virus. Meanwhile, Leon and Ashley escape the island self-destruct sequence on jet skis. Resident Evil 4, what game?
It was fantastic. One of the best in the series, if not the best in the series. in my opinion.
Resident Evil Revelations takes place smack bang between Resis 4 and 5 and introduces the Bioterrorism Security Assessment Alliance into the mix, or BSAA for fans.
Yeah, I never
of
played
acronyms.
this one. I've not even heard of
In
this
the
one.
wake of a
until now.
bioterrorism attack that destroys the city of Terra Grigia, BSAA agents Jill Valentine and Parker Luciani are dispatched to the last known location of their missing team members, Chris Redfield, who's now got massive arms, and Jessica Sherowat. The last known location turns out to be the Queen Zenobia cruiser, which is drifting in the
Chris
Mediterranean Sea,
Redfield.
seemingly abandoned. While there, Jill and Parker are ambushed by an organisation called Veltro, the folks responsible for the previous bio-attacks, and they are imprisoned. The BSAA makes contact with Chris, why didn't they do that in the first place, and sends him and Jessica in to rescue Jill and Parker, and they make for the Zenobia. Chris and Jill eventually reunite because that's what everyone really wants, and foil a plot to contaminate the sea with a virus
they're
known
in
as the T-Abyss. At some
love.
point, they're just going to run out of names for these viruses.
You can't run out of names for them.
Right, time for something a little different. And by different, I mean mostly the same, but now it's a film.
Completely
The
different.
first of a trilogy of CG animated movies, Resident Evil Degeneration sees series stalwarts Leon S. Kennedy and Claire Redfield foil another Raccoon City-like bioterrorism plot, but this time it's on a wider scale across the whole US. It kind of feels like you're watching a 90-minute long
I wonder
and
where I can watch
unskippable
these.
cutscene.
If you know where I
when
can
all you
watch
want to
these,
do is explore a bit.
let me know in the
and shoot some
comments. I
zombies
would
in the
love to
face.
know.
A year or so later, we get the mad conspiracy shenanigans of the Netflix series Resident Evil Infinite Darkness. After a civil war in the fictional nation of Penamstan, a war in which the US sent in a special operations unit known as the Mad Dogs, Leon and Claire come back together to untangle a potential cover-up alluding to the use of bioweapons. Long story short, there is a cover-up, within the White House no less, which Claire manages to, well, uncover, while the Blonde Curtains himself gallivants on a globe-trotting adventure to China and back to stop a Tyrant-esque super soldier, which he naturally does, because he's Leon S. Kennedy, and the S stands for Stop Using Bioweapons.
Leon Mother Flippin' Kennedy is what his name is. One of the baddest men ever born.
Fast forward about a year, and
Love
our dream
Resident
team,
Evil
Chris
5.
and Jill, have finally tracked down the
Such
last
a great
remaining
game.
co-founding member of Umbrella, Lord Oswell E. Spencer.
Jill, the master of unlocking, uses a lockpick to break into Spencer's residence, and the duo make their way through the mansion until they encounter not Spencer, but Wesker.
Wesker.
Having arrived ahead of them, Wesker brutally murders Spencer by just punching him right through the chest. It's just devastating. Wesker then squares off against Chris and Jill, and as the battle comes to its conclusion, Jill rugby tackles Wesker out of a window and they both plummet down a cliff. Did they survive? Of course they did. Wesker cryogenically freezes Jill in preparation for... Yeah, we're heading to Africa for Resident Evil 5,
Here
which
comes
takes
the
place nearly 3
plane
years
down
later.
in
The game follows Chris
Africa.
Redfield and BSAA partner Sheva Alomar as they
Wait, I thought we were
investigate
already
an
doing
outbreak
Resident
on the
Evil
Las
5.
Plagas parasite in an African town. Chris and Sheva stop an illegal arms deal and as a
Hold on a
result
second.
stumble onto evidence that Jill...
Hold on a second. What was this one? Lost in Nightmares? This isn't the same thing. Was it a DLC? Is that what they said it was? I don't recall Lost in Nightmares. Huh. Okay, Resident Evil 5, though, is what got me back into Resident Evil. I actually didn't play 4 when it came out. But I ended up playing Resident Evil 5 and then went back and played Resident Evil 4. And started getting back into the Resident Evil games.
Yeah, we're heading to Africa for Resident Evil 5, which takes place nearly
I think I sang that song wrong earlier. Anyway.
3 years later, the game follows Chris Redfield and BSAA partner Sheva Alomar as they investigate an outbreak on the Las Plagas parasite in an African town. Chris and Sheva stop an illegal arms deal and as a result stumble onto evidence that Jill is still alive. Driven to find his old partner, Chris continues the investigation and the pair find themselves in the cave that started this whole mad franchise off in the first place. Yeah, they rediscover the origins of the T-virus, the stairway to the sunflower, and uncover a conspiracy involving the BSAA's parent company, Tricell, who have been sneakily continuing on with Umbrella's research. Chris and Shiva eventually catch up to Jill Valentine, sporting a new blonde haircut, and wrestle her in order to remove a mind control device that is attached to her chest. To absolutely no one's surprise, Wesker reveals himself with another world-destroying plan. This time, it's firing missiles containing a virus known as Ouroboros all around the world. Our trio chase Wesker down and eventually corner him in an active volcano. Because by this point, why the f*** not? Chris and Sheva take the fight to Wesker, and in Chris's case, some poor, innocent, defenseless boulders that probably had friends and family that cared for them. And they eventually kill Wesker once and for all by firing, yep, you guessed it, ladies and gentlemen, it's the crowd favourite, Rezi's big bad killer, an RPG right into his smug face.
Survive that one, Wesker.
Next up on this timeline is Resident Evil Revelations 2.
So that's where we think Wesker actually dies, right?
Inspired by Czech author Franz Kafka.
A fact that I literally just found out while writing this timeline. To make my job even more complicated, Revelations 2 takes place across 2 different timelines. The first sees Claire Redfield and Moira Burton, daughter of ginger legend Barry, being kidnapped and imprisoned on an island by a mysterious woman known as the Overseer. In a weird Kafka-esque experiment of sorts, the prisoners are fitted with bracelets that track their fear levels. Get too afraid and you turn into a monster. Ooh, symbolism.
That'd be kind of crazy.
The second timeline, however, sees Barry arrive on the island in an attempt to rescue his daughter, a whopping 6 months later. The story then unfolds over 4 episodes, each of them named after a Kafka short story, and follows Claire and Moira's attempts to escape and Barry's rescue mission. Barry encounters a little girl known as Natalia, who reveals that the Overseer is in fact Alex Wesker. Contrary to popular belief, not a sister to Albert Wesker, but another child that has survived Umbrella's heinous Project Wesker.
2 Weskers? You gotta be shitting me.
The quartet finally managed to escape the island, if you got the good ending that is, and defeat Alex with, oh boy, is that, yeah it is, it's back, the most classic of Resident Evil madman murdering weapons, the rocket launcher.
If we don't see a rocket launcher RPG in Requiem, we riot.
Before we get into the madness of Resident Evil 6, we've got another jaunt back into the CG film trilogy, with the middle entry Resident Evil Damnation. Damnation is a considerable improvement over its predecessor, and sees Leon S. Kennedy catapulted back into the story. This time around, Leon ventures to Eastern Europe to investigate rumours that BOWs are being used in a local civil war. Obviously,
Leon likes to hang out in Europe,
and he spends the runtime trying to clean up the mess, with occasional help and hindrance from the lady in red herself, Ada Wong.
I'm telling you, if Ada Wong is not in Requiem, I'm going to be very disappointed.
Oh my god, where do I even start with Resident Evil 6?
Don't raise dragons right off the bat. For new players,
you start at the beginning, my guy.
Don't rush to raise dragons. You might get a
Playing like a greatest hits of the franchise, Resident Evil 6 features a bloated monster of a storyline, with not one, not 2, not even bloody 3, but 4 different campaigns and 7 major characters. The story kicks off on Christmas Eve 2012 with Jake Muller, the son of the late Albert Wesker. Hang on, when did he get busy? Yeah, Wesker fucks. Being taken into custody by a grown-up Sherry Birkin, who is now a BSAA agent. Muller is the key to creating a vaccine to the new C virus, but Birkin's mission to extract him from the fictional country of Adonia is put on hold when they are hunted down by a new bioweapon called Ustenak, which is like Nemesis on steroids. To add insult to injury,
Let me
during the
guess.
attack they are abducted by an imposter calling herself Ada Wong. Meanwhile, BSAA agents Chris Redfield and Piers Nivans are in the same neighbourhood to keep the local infected population under control. They soon come under attack from a new organisation calling itself Neo Umbrella, supposedly led by Ada Wong, and their whole squad is wiped out by the C
But
virus.
not the real Ada
Fast
Wong.
forward 6 months and the American president is about to air Umbrella's dirty laundry from the 1998 Raccoon City outbreaks. But there's another bioterrorism attack and the president is infected, forcing our old friend Leon Kennedy to kill him. Leon uncovers that the National Security Advisor Derek Simmons was behind the attack, and he tracks down Simmons to a Neo Umbrella lab in Langxiang, China, with his partner Helena Harper.
So Leon's
Chris
gotta
and
be,
Piers are
like,
then dispatched to
pushing
Langxiang
40
to hunt down Ada,
and
they
Requiem,
come into
right?
contact with Leon and Helena, who inform them that the Ada that they are hunting is in fact a clone. Following their run-in with Chris, Leon and Helena finally confront and defeat a mutated Simmons. Leon then dispatches Chris and Piers to an oil rig to rescue Jake and Sherry and prevent another large-scale
I don't
bioterrorism
remember
attack.
any
this
of this
time
game. Maybe I
courtesy of a
didn't play 6. I
bioweapon
thought I
called
played
Chaos.
6.
This kitchen sink approach to storytelling all dovetails into a messy conclusion that sees Pierce inject himself with the C virus to defeat Chaos. Sherry and Jake then kill the behemoth Eustanak, and the real Ada destroys the lab where her clone was created. Whew, that was a lot. And I didn't even mention the fact that the logo looks like a giraffe being sucked off by a...
Oh, mama. This guy.
Unfortunately, the film trilogy closer Resident Evil Vendetta also throws everything in the kitchen sink into its overstuffed narrative too. Vendetta brings Chris and Leon back together again, but also throws Rebecca Chambers back into the mix. Yeah,
Interesting.
remember
I need
her?
to watch
Last
these
time we saw
movies
her on the timeline
before
was
the,
all the way back in the original
Requiem comes
Resi,
out.
like 20 or so minutes ago. Anyway, this trio of bioterrorism busting badasses get embroiled in yet another attempt to unleash a new virus on the unsuspecting citizens of the world. But this time it's a virus with a new name. The A virus, because, well, that letter wasn't yet taken. Long story short, the trio succeed, and along the way there's fan favourites all over the shop. A new tyrant, a launcher of the grenade variety, and of course, lots and lots of virus-riddled zombies.
Resident Evil 7. Love this
Right,
game.
after the bonkers plots of the last couple of entries, it's time to take things back to basics with the swampland horror of Resident Evil 7. The year is 2014 and all hell is about to break loose for the Baker family. After encountering an abandoned tanker in the Louisiana bayou, Jack Baker finds a little girl and brings her back to the family home. All appears normal until the girl wakes up and causes the Bakers to go, well...
Insane.
Fast forward 3 years to the summer of 2017 for the main plot of Resident Evil 7, which sees poor Ethan Winters encounter the charming Baker family while he searches for his missing wife Mia.
Yes.
As Ethan endures the delightful hospitality of the Bakers,
Welcome to the family, son.
he soon discovers that his wife and the family have been infected with a mold-like fungus that turns them super aggressive. He escapes the hellish residence with help from the Baker's daughter Zoe, defeating Jack and Margarita along the way. Ethan eventually discovers that his wife Mia was working as an operative for an organisation that developed the little girl known as Evelyn into a bioweapon. Evelyn escapes and, well, you know the rest of the story. Ethan finally encounters Evelyn face to giant face, eventually killing her before being rescued by none other than boulder murderer Chris Redfield. The pair escape in a helicopter with Mia, if you chose to cure her, and they fly off into the sunrise. Wait, is that an Umbrella logo on the side of that helicopter? Well, sort of. In the wake of Umbrella's
Neo
messy
Umbrella?
end, another company known as Blue Umbrella emerged from the ashes with the primary goal to clean up the mess of the original corporation. In the wake of the Baker residence outbreak, Chris Redfield assists Blue Umbrella in capturing Lucas, the last remaining Baker, before he reveals the secrets of Evelyn's infection to nefarious ne'er-do-wells.
Game over.
Whoa. What's that?
That Chris Redfield wasn't ripped enough.
Guys.
He needed more
Santa
muscles.
just built an
And so we reach the final destination of this madcap rollercoaster of a franchise, Resident Evil Village, or Resident Evil 8 Age, if you're being pedantic.
3.5 years have passed since the carnage of Resi 7, and Ethan and Mia Winters are living a relatively normal life with their newborn daughter Rose. That is until our pal Chris Redfield and his Hound Wolf squad storm the Winters residence and kidnap hapless Ethan and baby Rose. Ethan and his daughter are taken out of town, but before they can reach their destination, their truck is ambushed, the little nipper Rose is kidnapped by someone else, and Ethan is left for dead. Gosh, this lad just can't catch a break, can he? He awakens to this new nightmare and ventures into a nearby village to search for Rose. The village in question is like something out of a Universal monster movie, complete with actual werewolves roaming the street and a Dracula-alike countess lording over a giant spooky castle. After the former nearly eviscerates poor Ethan, he's imprisoned by the latter, a giant lady vampire known as Lady Dimitrescu. Having been tipped off by a mysterious merchant known simply as the Duke, Ethan discovers that Rosemary has been killed.
Hello, stranger.
And her body parts scattered across the village in 4 different flasks. Damn, that's dark. The 4 different flasks have been entrusted to 4 different lords, or in a massive callback to the very beginning of this video, 4 of Mother Miranda's Cadu parasite experiments. One by one, Ethan systematically dispatches these monstrosities, starting with the aforementioned tall vampire Lady Dimitrescu, before offing puppet possessor Donna Beneviento, giant fishman Salvatore Moreau, and finally Magneto on steroids Carl Heisenberg. After dispatching Heisenberg, Ethan discovers that Chris is in the neighbourhood, and he tracks him down to have a go at him for shooting his wife. Chris explains that the Mia he shot was actually Mother Miranda in disguise, and that she's pulling the strings on this whole damn puppet show. This surreal nightmare comes to a head when Ethan confronts Miranda only to die for his troubles. Don't worry, we haven't seen the back, or face either to be honest, of this lad just yet. Having witnessed Ethan's death, Chris assembles his Wolfhound squad, and they venture deep under the village where they discover the truth behind Mother Miranda and her experiments with the Megamycete. Chris's plan to deal with this truth? Blow the shit out of it. He plants a charge and vacates the premises.
Cut to Ethan, who isn't dead. Well, actually, he is, but let me explain.
You see, Ethan has been dead since pretty much the very beginning of Resi 7, after his encounter with Jack Baker. The reason that he's still alive is because he was infected by the very mold that he was trying to destroy in that game, and its powers of revival have been keeping him breathing ever since. Hence
he's
why
basically a zombie.
Just put his hand back on when it's chopped off earlier in the game. The revived Ethan once again takes the fight to Miranda, who's halfway through trying to revive her daughter Eva. With Ethan's timely intervention, she actually revives baby Rose, and with his mission complete, Ethan kills Miranda and stays behind to make sure Chris's bomb destroys the Megamycete. And as the Megamycete blows sky high, Chris jets off into the horizon with Rose and a rescued Mia too, having found her held prisoner in the dungeons of the castle.
And then there was the DLC, The Shadows of Rose.
Before we close out this timeline, there's one last little epilogue that wraps up the Winter story with a nice, neat little bow. And that's the story DLC expansion, Shadows of Rose.
It's 16 years since the events of Village, and baby Rose is all grown up, and has sadly lived a life of being bullied for her unique powers, a result of her time with Miranda and the Megamycete. Wishing to be rid of her powers, she's given an opportunity to shed them by her friend, a lad simply named Kay. His proposition is for Rose to enter the consciousness of a shard of the Megamycete and recover a purifying crystal to help remove her abilities. Instead of running for the hills at that clearly mad idea, Rose dives on in and finds herself in a warped version of the Dimitrescu castle, trying to survive from a dark version of the merchant from the main Village campaign.
Hello,
As she
stranger.
dives deeper through the various levels of the Megamycete, Rose is aided by a disembodied voice calling himself Michael. His golden words guide Rose past the merchant, a horde of killer dolls, and finally Evelyn, the big bad from Resident Evil 7. Rose eventually nabs the purifying crystal, but in the process comes face to face with Mother Miranda, who reveals that Kay was an illusion, and the whole setup was a plot to use Rose as a vessel to revive her daughter Eva. Michael also reveals himself to be Ethan's consciousness, and this lovely family reunion is promptly ruined by Miranda baying for blood. Ethan and Rose eventually overpower Miranda when Rose decides to keep her powers, and with Miranda dispatched once again, Rose finds herself back home in her own reality. And the game ends with Rose at her father's graveside being drafted back into the machinations of some shadowy organisation. And as they drive off into the distance, a mysterious figure is seen approaching their car. Who is he? Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see where this mad franchise goes next for the answer to that.
And that, friends, is the Resident Evil timeline in a hideous, hideous nutshell. I hope you enjoyed this one.
That was great.
If
You did a great
please
job,
make sure
Adam.
to check out some of my other timelines, including Dead Space, Metroid, and Uncharted.
So then the question becomes, how does Requiem fit into the timeline? How does Resident Evil Requiem fit into timeline? Resident Evil 9 lore explained. Who is Grace Ashcroft when is set? Yeah, let's watch this one.
Resident Evil 9 is officially announced and has an official title, Resident Evil Requiem.
Wait, how old is this? How old is this video? 7 months? Surely we know more since then, right? Resident Evil Requiem, 10 things you need to know. Let's watch that. Because I really want to know how Requiem is going to fit into the whole...
All right, so Resident Evil 9 Requiem isn't quite out yet.
Grand scheme of things.
A lot of information. So today we're rounding up all of the publicly available info, as well as a little bit of our own opinion and hands-on impressions. It's me, Jake, and we're here with 10 things you need to know about...
God, I can't wait for this game.
Starting off at number 10, the obvious one. Leon is back, and there are 2 playable characters this time. So having
Return
Grace
of King,
Ashcroft
baby.
and Leon Kennedy in the game, it kind of feels like it brings us back
Look
to
how
the classic
old he looks.
character format of the series. Though instead of each character has like 2 characters.
Look how old Leon looks right here.
Instead of each character
come on.
having their own separate campaign, this game instead splits up their playtime evenly throughout the story,
No,
similar
come on,
to
go
this
back.
time. So having Grace Ashcroft and Leon Kennedy in the game, it kind of
I'll keep doing that.
characters this time. So having Grace Ashcroft and Leon Kennedy in the game.
Look how old he looks. So I don't know that we know exactly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because if we do know and I've missed it, but do we know the time frame in which Requiem takes place? Obviously, Leon looks a little bit rough around the edges, like he's seen some things since the last time we saw him. Obviously, he's been through a lot in his life, but are we talking like... So let's say it is 2026, the last time we saw... So we see... Okay. We meet Leon Kennedy in 1998. So it has been 28 years since Leon was originally in the game. So let's say that he was... Let's just say hypothetically he was 20. And that would be really young for a police officer. He's like 48 now? Almost 50? Assuming that the timeline is correct. Leon's going to be 50 years old, roughly about 50 years old in this game.
It kind of feels like it brings us back to the classic 2-character format of the series. Though instead of each character having their own separate campaign, this game instead splits up their playtime evenly throughout the story, similar to how they kind of did it in Resident Evil.
Yeah, I kind of like that you don't like choose.
Director, Leon's sections of the game are going to be much more similar to Resident Evil 4, while new character Grace Ashcroft's segments will be way more like Resident Evil 7, with more closed-off environments, limited ammo, tight inventory, survival horror stuff. Her segments are intended to be the real scary parts, while Leon gets the crazy, fun, awesome side of Resident Evil. In terms of progression, in terms of how
I need that
character switching
jacket.
works,
I need
from what
that
we've seen so far, it seems like
coat
it's
of
linear.
his.
You'll play through a big
So
section as
bad
Leon,
looking.
and then it'll jump to Grace.
I love it.
And mechanically, both players appear to do a lot of like the similar core base things. Leon and Grace can both crouch. They both have access to weapons. They can do stealth takedowns to a point. But then Leon is by default set to third-person view, while Grace's camera,
which I think is so
first
cool.
person. So in general, her gameplay seems
also
slower
how
and more
these
deliberate
zombies
and
like
more
move.
favorable to that camera angle, while Leon is all about roundhouse
like
kicking zombies,
chaoticness
so
of their
third person
movement
is best for
is
him. Now,
so
interestingly
fascinating.
enough, their UIs seem to change a bit to accommodate their different playstyles. Leon's UI looks right out of Resident Evil 4 with a prominent health bar displayed on the screen at all times, while Grace's UI is extremely minimal, more like Resident Evil 7. It does look like this game wants to have it all, like really have its cake and eat it too. You know, the terror, the horror of Resident Evil 7, and the highly thrilling, awesome stuff from Resident Evil 4. So it's a lot to pack into one game. It's really ambitious, but so far from what we've seen, it looks promising. Now at number 9, into a little bit more speculation. This game might have some big open levels. In the earliest stages of development, Resident Evil Requiem was going to be an open world multiplayer game, according to the developers, but that concept was scrapped early on in favor of the game we've got now, which is more closer to a regular traditional Resident Evil. Still, there might still be some of that open world DNA.
Right, kind of like what they did in The Last of Us Part 2.
Certain leakers are to be believed. Again, this is all pure speculation and rumors and stuff. Take this all with a grain of salt. But apparently Requiem will feature some, quote, big open levels. To us, that kind of suggests that there could be some large, more like non-linear segments. I'm thinking something like the lake area in Resident Evil 4 Remake that let you go do a couple little things here and there. Something more on the level of that than like an open world level, but who knows? The speculation about an open world or an explorable area did go crazy after Nvidia released this trailer that showed Grace walking through a very dense and graphically gorgeous city street, which a lot of people kind of saw as a possible open world. For me personally, I really doubt that like a city with, you know, civilians and
so
cars.
Do we know who
and
Grace is though exactly?
A main gameplay thing for Resident Evil.
Like we know she's like an FBI agent, but do we know
thing? I feel like it's something you probably walk
who
through
she is
as part of the story, but I don't expect that to be a big gameplay area where you're like killing dudes. But who knows? We could be wrong. If there are going to be any big levels, they're probably going to be set in the blown up remains of Raccoon City and the Raccoon City Police Department, which we are finally returning to after all these years. Because the first trailer revealed that. Having said that, we haven't seen a lot of actual gameplay moments in that area. So we're really excited to see like what actually happens there. Now at number 8, after the success of Resident Evil 7, we did get a few games with a first-person camera and then the remakes with a third-person camera. But like I said earlier, in this game, you do get both. So at any point, you can actually now switch between camera modes for either character. And this might sound like a minor thing, but your perspective actually does affect how the game is played. One prominent example seen in the gameplay demo that they put out is that when you play in third person, Grace will occasionally stumble when running away from enemies, which is something that does not actually happen when you're in first person. It's more of like an immersive animation thing. This was done to create more tension when playing in third person. And I guess since it's like lacking that immediate jump scare effectiveness when the camera's in your face,
tell you how excited I am for this game.
The developers have compensated by adding some new little animations and things here to ramp up the tension. I don't know. So playing in first or third person isn't just a cosmetic change. It actually affects the gameplay in some noticeable ways, but they are still more under the hood ways to make it feel like a more natural first person game or a more natural third person game. Not one of those games where it's like you're playing in third person, but it really feels like it's designed like a first person game. And I think part of that comes down to the fact that like you can't just press a button and switch the camera on the fly. You actually have to go into the menu and manually switch the camera mode over in the options menu. It doesn't seem like there's a massive load time or anything like that. It's pretty quick, but that is a thing, and it's also worth noting that you can set defaults for these people. There's going to be a tab for Leon and a tab for Grace, and you can set the default camera perspective for them. So if you prefer to play in Leon as first person or something like that, you can have it switched on so that you play as Leon in first person for the whole game. The freedom of choice here, the options, is really cool.
We are definitely playing with Leon in third person and Kim, is that her name? In first.
Cool. We don't see this in enough games, so I definitely commend them for this.
I don't need no
Next
AI.
at number 7, let's talk about the zombies, because it looks like we're back to the classic zombie style of the old games, but there's a little bit of a twist. Instead of just being completely mindless husks, the zombies in this game seem to actually retain some small aspect of their
I saw
former
that in
selves.
something I watched earlier,
as
like
shown in some of the trailers and stuff, instead of just standing around doing nothing, these guys continue to kind of do the things they did in real life. So like custodians will continue to wander around and clean. Now, watching them and kind of learning their behaviors seems important for Grace more than anything, because she needs to play more carefully compared to Leon because of, you know, survival horror and limited resources. But either way, this change gives the zombies a really unpredictable edge that could make them more interesting. From our preview session, we saw a handful of different zombies. A big chef zombie that stomps around a certain area, a zombie just stuck flicking a light switch, and then if you switch a different light switch, you can kind of manipulate and trick that zombie as to where they go. A hospital patient looking zombie that seems even more sensitive to sound, where if you're sneaking around and you make sound, they'll freak out and run after you. As well as, like we mentioned before, a kind of cleaner or janitor style zombie that looks like she will actually seek out and find blood spots and clean them. Some of these zombies apparently can mutate into monsters, but we've only seen so much of that. We can't really speak to it. But in terms of like other enemy types, we don't know a lot about Requiem. We did see that big, tall, scary lady stalker from the first reveal of Grace's gameplay, but other than that,
Grace, I think
we
I
don't
called
really
her
know
Kim
too much.
Earlier, name's Grace.
Next at number 6, we already talked about like the main differences
Grace,
between Leon
the
and
blessing.
Grace, but Leon isn't just back to playing just like Resident Evil 4. He's actually got some new tricks. For one thing, he swapped out the knife for this big hatchet that can be used to parry attacks, just like the knife. But one thing that is different about it is that you no longer need to visit a shop to repair this thing. It can actually be fixed on the fly by pressing a button where he will then sharpen the axe. Now, melee prompts have returned, and the ability to incapacitate an enemy by, you know, shooting them in the legs and performing a cool kick, that returns. That's like Resident Evil 101 at this point, but this time there's more variety in the sorts of actions.
Of course, there's not much in Resident Evil 2.
If a zombie is near a surface, he'll incorporate that into the finisher. And it looks like he's got special gun finishers too, like he can stick a gun in a zombie's face and blow their head off, for example. The way this seems to work is if a zombie is already low on health and you get really close to them and you press the shoot button, that'll trigger it. One of the more exciting things that definitely blew up the internet was seeing that Leon can pick up and use enemy weapons, including a chainsaw. This is something that we wanted to see since Resident Evil 4 first happened. Like, if you're going to make us fight chainsaw-wielding guys, let us pick one up and use one ourselves. And picking up the chainsaw, in our experience from our preview, does feel pretty
why have we never been able to pick up a chainsaw before?
You can do a big spin hit with it, and it absolutely tears through zombies. It can also kind of save you if a zombie gets too close and tries to bite you. When that zombie leans in, Leon will like stab through that zombie with the chainsaw to repel them, pushing them away with the chainsaw stuck in the zombie's body.
So
it's
amazing.
pretty crazy. From everything we've seen, it looks like they're taking the action-based combat even further than the Resident Evil 4 remake.
Which is wild because he's old.
Incorporating some of the ideas from Resident Evil 6, which for all its flaws, did have some cool stuff you could do as Leon. Honestly, we're just big fans of Leon here, and it's nice to see him be like the fully fleshed out badass that we know he is. Next at number 5, look, we talked about Leon a lot. He gets the fancy stuff, but there's still a lot of interesting things that have been revealed about how this new character Grace is gonna play. The early trailers focused on the RE7 style, kind of creeping around, hiding mechanics, and that does seem to be a major part of how you're gonna play as Grace. But the more recent showcase trailer, and from what we've seen, makes it clear that her gameplay style is very much in line with a regular old Resident Evil game. That means exploring dense buildings with limited ammo and limited inventory. She does have access to weapons, and you're gonna swap them on the D-pad like you do in these games, but she's less capable than Leon by design. She's not this like grizzled veteran or an over-the-top badass. But she's still an FBI agent. She can fire a weapon, but aiming and shooting is going to be a little bit more difficult by default. But she does have some special items and weapons to go in her favor, though. She has the Requiem gun
I appreciate that reality.
The usual large caliber revolver with limited ammo type weapon slot. It is extremely powerful, but extremely limited ammo. So it's only really meant to be used in a pinch, but when you use it, it can blow a hole in like multiple zombies in front of you. It's nuts. Otherwise, Grace's gameplay sections seem to be sticking pretty close to a Resident Evil 7 or a Resident Evil Village feel and formula, where she's exploring complex, interconnected spaces, solving puzzles, strategically choosing which enemies to kill or maybe avoid, and picking up healing items, green herbs, combining them, all that stuff. There's
Right.
still the limited inventory. There's also a tab for crafting. So again, you're crafting healing items, ammo, stuff like that. But there's also this new mechanic for Requiem that revolves around these specialized injectors you can get. Because next at number 4, probably the strangest new mechanic shown so far, Grace can absorb collected blood from dead enemies, which can then be used to craft injectors that have various functions.
Yeah, that
you can
is
find
that
buckets
seems
of blood
odd to
in the
me. Like
environment,
what
as well as
what
just
purpose does
blood
that
from
serve
downed
for
enemies. And you
Grace?
hold a button and she
Is it because of who Grace is?
Now, the only one we've seen used so far is the hemolytic injector, if I'm saying that right, where you inject infected blood into a zombie, which makes them explode. Which might not sound that useful, but it permanently kills the zombie. So you have no chance of it like mutating or becoming a bigger thing, which tends to be a factor in Resident Evil games. By blowing the thing up completely, you take it out of the picture, and it kind of serves as a little bit of a stealth kill weapon. Even if it's not very stealthy, because they explode into blood that goes everywhere, you'll constantly have the option of sneaking up behind a zombie and injecting them with one of these things. But you're going to want to collect blood as much as possible, because not only are you making these injectors, which you know, we've only seen a few examples of, but the blood also ties
We've seen it all now in Resident Evil
system, like making bullets and stuff like that, which sounds weird to use blood for crafting, but I don't know, it's a new thing in the environment to pick up. Next, at number 3, let's talk character upgrades, because in our preview, in our hands-on, we got to see a little bit of it. As Grace, exploring the environment, you can find these old coins. These old-timey collector coins take up a spot in your inventory, so you have to be strategic about grabbing them, but there are rooms with little cabinets that you can spend these coins on. They open up and they give you things. This is where you'll get access to an expanded inventory system, but also special injectors that you can unlock that Grace will inject herself with and improve her health. Essentially increasing her health bar, as well as another one we unlocked that helps with Grace's aiming accuracy as well as the firepower behind the shots. So with a couple of upgrades, it becomes very clear that Grace isn't as ineffective as she was in that early game where she's being stalked by that giant thing. She's not just stumbling around. She can shoot, she can fire, but it kind of feels like she's on the same level as an Ethan Winters. In terms of Leon's upgrades, we didn't get to see too much of this except for gun upgrades. We found a few gun parts in the environment that we were able
look at that guy.
To Leon's weapon, and pretty much in typical fashion.
Sexiest man alive right there.
Resident Evil games before, but it was really cool to pick up a compensator and attach it to our pistol just to give us some little extra gun bonuses.
People waste 14
I like that. I like the attachments. That's one of my favorite parts of Resident Evil 2. Is like all the gun attachments that you get.
Options. You know, these games generally stick to the classics when it comes to difficulty selections, but this new game does something a little different. There's the usual casual mode, which offers some aim assist for players who just want to experience the story and not have too much struggle. But instead of just having the usual normal difficulty, this game has 2 different variations kind of on the same thing. There's standard modern and standard classic. Both of them are like the intended difficulty, the normal difficulty, but if you play on classic, then there are fewer autosaves when playing as Grace.
Interesting.
And if you want to save the game, then you'll need to use an ink ribbon to do so. They describe this mode as being more challenging in line with the old games.
Original,
but if you actually played those old games, ink ribbons are pretty manageable. You might be used to that whole system. They're usually around, and even if you saved fairly frequently, you're not usually in danger of running out. So I'm just curious to see how Requiem will pace that. Will it be the same way, or are they going to really limit those ink ribbons and make your life a living hell? Curious to see how it goes. Is standard difficulty set to classic actually a harder way to play, or if it's just a slight change? The modern version of standard difficulty is basically just the same thing, only without ink ribbons and more autosaves. So it's really just a decision whether you cannot handle limited saves or not. It's good that the game is giving players options, but I can't help but wonder how the classic mode is balanced, you know? Depending on how infrequent save points are, it could end up being a lot harder, or it might not be a big deal. I just don't know until we actually get our hands on the full entire game. But still, it's interesting, and I'm glad they're trying to accommodate new and old players.
We'll know soon, 17 days.
Down at number 1, Resident Evil 9 is launching February 27th. There's the usual deluxe editions and the pre-order bonuses, but
that's what I got was the deluxe edition.
Early access schemes or anything like that. One other thing worth mentioning, just for housekeeping here, is what systems the game will be available for. There's the usual stuff, you know, PS5, Xbox Series X and S, Steam, Epic Game Stores, GeForce Now, but also the Nintendo Switch 2. If you missed the news, yeah, this is coming to the Switch 2 day and date. Now, we can't comment on performance. We haven't seen anything, but I'm curious to see how it goes. It's another game key card thing, so
I mean, I'm very impressed with the Switch 2.
It looks like the game might shape up to be
and
a
its
good
like
Switch
ability.
2 port, We won't know for sure until we
So-
actually play it, but wherever we play it, from Switch 2 to PC, I just hope this thing runs well. But that's it. Those are 10 things you need to know about Resident Evil Requiem. It's
It's
going to
run great
on
on
let us know in the
Xbox and
comments
PS5.
what you think.
100%.
I'm sure there's tons
They
of
all
story
do.
speculation. We didn't
They
really
all
want to go
do.
into that too much, but I'm incredibly excited to see what actually
That's
goes
what I
down
wanted
here.
to know
Let us
was
what you think about
the
Resident
story
Evil 9, anything
aspect,
at all,
but
down
maybe
in the
it's
comments. If you like this video, clicking the like button helps us out.
maybe it's better that we don't. Maybe that's what we need to not worry about is the story. And then when that story comes out and we get to see what it's going to be like soon, gosh, 2.5 weeks, basically, right? A little less. I cannot wait. So in the meantime, if you're wanting more Resident Evil, we have Resident Evil 2 currently play through on our YouTube channel. We'll have episode 4 releasing tomorrow, and I'm done recording all of Leon's story in Resident Evil 2, and then we'll be kicking over to Claire's. So that should lead us right up into the 17th when Requiem releases. We're also been live streaming every Sunday, Resident Evil 4. We might still finish that. I might do an extra long stream or something on Sunday night. To catch up. We did not stream this past Sunday, but we've got some catching up to do there in order to get it done. But if we don't get it done, that's okay. Once Requiem releases on the 17th, we are fully dedicating this channel, everything on here to... Oh, my autofocus is going crazy with my hand gestures there. To Requiem. So... cannot wait for that. Super excited. We're going to, day of release, we're going to just do an extra long stream. Probably stream it all day. I don't know how long the game is. It'll probably take us a day or two to beat. But it'll be well worth it. And then we'll get out as many videos as we possibly can. We'll chop up those live streams into something that people can watch on the channel. And then we'll also look to do as many shorts and stuff and content out of that, and we'll just you know, I've not been one to make videos on like this is how you do this is how you do that, but I think that we'll try and get creative a little bit with what we do. But ultimately, that's gonna be it for tonight. Appreciate everybody tuning in tonight. We will be back tomorrow with more Arc Raiders, 9:00 p.m. Central Standard Time here on YouTube, Twitch, and TikTok. And look forward to seeing you all there. But hope everybody has a great night. Appreciate all the love and support. If you have not hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you're not joined us in this movement to take over the YouTubes, then do that, please. We'd love all the support we get from all of our fans everywhere. So until next time, hope you all have a great night. Peace.